fire from both the right and the left. First, conservatives are openly criticizing the government's surprise purchase of a 10% stake in Intel. The deal, valued at $11 billion, was announced as a win for America's semiconductor future. But many on the right blasted it as a step toward socialism with an R next to its name. That's what Eric Erickson, well-known conservative podcaster and pundit, that's how he put it. Senator Rand Paul warned that government ownership of private industry is, quote, a terrible idea, while National Review said the state should not be in the chip business at all. At the same time, the administration is signaling Chicago may be the next city to face a federal crackdown. National Guard deployments have already taken place in Los Angeles and Washington, D.C., raising questions about the federal role in policing American streets. Chicago Mayor Brendan Johnson stressed that crime has been declining and said, quote, sending in the military is not one of the solutions. Into this environment stepped HBO host Bill Maher, who cautioned on Friday night that what we are witnessing could be a slow-moving coup. On his program, Real Time, Maher warned that normalizing militarized police forces and National Guard patrols could lay the groundwork for consolidating power in ways that outlast any single emergency. The common thread through these developments is uncertainty in economic policy and governance and in the balance of civil authority. Businesses fear unpredictable interventions like surprise ownership stakes. Cities worry about unclear lines between federal and local control, and commentators warn that blurred boundaries, left unchallenged, risk becoming the new norm. Okay, so what's the real message here? Washington, D.C. is out of control. The idea that our federal government is going to act like a mobster and tell Intel, hey, nice little company you got there. Be ashamed if something happened to it. Why don't you just give me 10% of it? That's essentially what's happened. Now, there is a lot of talk that this is a new form of authoritarianism, new form of socialism, new form of fascism. It's really just mobsterism run amok. It's frankly depressing. Let's dig a little deeper here. So I am happy to see that a lot of principled conservatives like Eric Erickson, like Rand Paul, are calling this out for what it is. This is socialism. We have the head of it, let's give conservatives credit. For decades, for 60 years, conservatives, most often in the Republican Party, said there is a danger that socialism is creeping into American policy at the highest levels. And the idea of trying to have a socialistic government where the government controls what private sector does, what we want the free enterprise system to do, is going to be horrible. It's going to be disastrous. It's going to ruin the economy, and it's going to make us like Cuba, where basically everybody's poor and you're considered rich if you're driving a clunker 57 Chevy. That's what conservatives have told us for years, and it turned out they were right. We now are in a position where our government is socializing major industries by trying to take control. What happened with Intel last week is socialism. It's when you have the government taking over a business. Now, there have been times when big industries that employed millions of people couldn't quite get through a recession, and the government sort of props them up. It happened in the airlines industry. It happened in the automotive industry. It was meant as a way of keeping an industry from imploding. And even that was controversial. But the idea that Intel can't make it without the United States government suddenly owning 10% of it, the way a mobster says, nice little restaurant here, it'd be a shame if it burned down. Why don't you give me 10% off out of the cash register every night? That's what this seems like. It really seems like a shakedown. And it is another example of what's really going on in Washington today. And I'm glad to see Bill Maher pointing it out. This is a slow-moving coup. This is the government saying, we can do whatever we want. We can take over corporations, multi-billion-dollar corporations like Intel, and at least extract what we want. We can take over cities as long as there are no Republicans running things. Now, if you look again, Chicago, Los Angeles, Washington, D.C., what do they all have in common? There's no Republican governor or Republican mayor to say to the president, hey, what are you doing here? This is our job. This is our business. This is a way for this administration to essentially, I don't use these words lightly. I don't mean to be an alarmist, but let's call it like it is. This is a chance for this government to lay the groundwork for essentially outlawing the Democratic Party. That's what we're talking about. Bill Maher didn't state it in quite those terms, but a slow-moving coup. If you essentially outlaw or invalidate or take power away from any other party, or for that matter, any critic, you've staged a coup. Why even bother having an election? But if you do have an election, good luck with the vote count, because if you've eliminated or you have federal oversight from your team, your henchmen, counting votes, doesn't really matter who gets the most votes. Your team can simply say only your votes count. And I think we're very much headed that way. There was a taste of this, obviously, in 2020 when the head of this current administration was giving orders to secretaries of state, find me 11,000 more votes. It's going to be a lot easier to do in 2026, certainly in 2028, if we continue to see this pattern of the feds, the federal government saying we're going to take over. They've taken over Washington, D.C. They've had henchmen roaming the streets of L.A. Chicago is rumored to be next. It's happened in the private sector businesses. It's happened in city governments. But we're also seeing it with just private citizens. John Bolton, well-known Republican policy expert, foreign policy expert, a former official in the Trump administration, but dared to criticize Trump. He saw the full power of the federal government raiding his house last week. And no, this is not common. This is not standard business. This is what a thugocracy does. This is what a fascist government does. You could always say to a former official, hey, we want to see your files on this. We think maybe there was a security issue. We want to check it out. You could do that. That would have been the standard ploy. That's not what they did. They used the full force of the government, the secret raids, bashing in his door, taking his files out, his possessions out the front door in front of the cameras, ripping away his security clearance. It sends a real message. If you criticize this administration, expect to be punished, expect to be investigated, and I don't think we're that far away from the day when you can expect to be imprisoned. That's not the most upbeat message to end a Sunday morning news. I do want to end on something upbeat, and I want to thank you for joining me today on Filtered with TJ Walker. I'm in a new neighborhood in South Florida in Palm Beach County, and I noticed across the street there was what appeared to be a child selling lemonade at a lemonade stand. And wanting to support a young entrepreneur and meet my neighbors, I had not met these neighbors yet. I went over and brought my wallet. I was prepared to buy some lemonade. And lo and behold, this young man, who I think was about 5 or 6, wasn't selling lemonade. He was selling a self-published book. And he put it together. He's got images. He bound it. It's copy paper. And this young man, 5 or 6, has, for whatever reason, a fascination with classic film and classic movie stars. He did a whole book on Roy Rogers. Now, it's I don't know, it's maybe 18 pages. I haven't completed it yet, but he talks about the history of Roy Rogers, how people think of him as a part of a hamburger chain, but going back to his history as an actor growing up on a farm in Ohio. He has pictures. It says authorized by the Roy Rogers estate. I don't really know if he did get all the copyright, but I got to tell you something. I think this is a good sign that young kids are being taught to be entrepreneurial and to do it in new ways. Selling lemonade, there's nothing wrong with that, although lemonade tastes awful unless you pour in mountains of sugar. Nothing wrong with a lemonade stand, but to sell a piece of intellectual property, I think that's a sign of several things. It's a sign this young man is going places, number one. Number two, I think it is a sign that his parents care about him and are trying to do everything they can to prepare him for the future. Those of you who know me and have watched this show in the past or know anything what I'm about, I'm a big, huge fan of the business model of creating intellectual property, because you can create it once, and this is not in a digital format. This is paper, but books you can make digital. You create it once, you can sell it around the world, you can ship it around the world with a click of a button. You don't have to worry about the latest tariff or the latest tax at the post office. You make it once and it can work for you, and it can be sold again and again and again, watched, consumed for days, weeks, months, years, sometimes decades. And the beauty of intellectual property is it only takes one win. You could be set for life. Now, I'm not here to suggest that this thin little pamphlet on Roy Rogers is going to pay for my neighbor's college education, but it is giving him a mindset and starting down a path of a skill set that could create a product that would do that. So I really want to leave you with this idea of think about creating something. It could be a podcast. It could be a YouTube show. It could be an online course. It could be a novel. It could be a book. Create something. Now, I've been a creator most of my life, and confession, I've been a massive failure. I have 300 online courses. Most of them didn't really make much money, but I've had a couple dozen bestsellers, and I've had three courses that enough to pay for this house and a couple of others too. So it only takes one win. That's, to me, the beauty of creating intellectual property, and to be able to do it without spending money. And you can do it on a Sunday morning or a Saturday morning or your time. So please give some thought to being a creator and then communicating that. It doesn't matter if you're a full-time emergency room doctor or if you're working in a warehouse at Amazon. Nothing is preventing you today from creating and promoting your creations and selling it everywhere in